You're listening to the 4-Phase Cycle podcast with your hosts, Dr. Alex and Megan of ZESTY Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you've definitely come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and best friends, we use the 4 phases of the female cycle in combination with functional lab work and mindset practices to transform the lives of the women we work with.
We also have a whole lot of fun along the way. If you're new around here, it's best to start with season 1 before jumping around and plan to roll up your sleeves. Showing up for ourselves and enjoying our lives is what good health is all about. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making changes.
Hello, Alex here. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Today we're going to talk about the excitement and faith and then despair and giving up yo-yo. I'm guessing that this is something that many of you have experienced, whether in health or in life or both. You know, a lot of us deal with this, and that is because it is brain based in some ways. So, not only will it help you stop the yo yo as much, it will also kind of release the stress, the judgment that we hold towards ourselves when it comes to stuff like this. All right, so before we dig into it, I wanted to invite you to our 4-day live habit hacking challenge. This is getting your brain on board with anything that you want to start or stop. Okay, so our habits, what we do, what you see around you, what your body looks like, what your house looks like, what you do for a living, is a direct reflection of the identity that we hold, and that is what drives the habits. So if you have been in the hamster wheel of let me change the stuff in my house, what I do, and oh no, it's not working, I keep falling off the bandwagon, this life challenge is definitely going to be for you. You are also going to be able to win $1,000. So, and that is, completely it's just $1,000, no strings attached. And so that is the winner. You bring a friend, you get an extra entry to the challenge. So come join us there. The link is going to be in the show notes, and you'll be getting invited through an email as well. So keep an eye out for that. All right, so the faith and despair yo-yo. So you're probably really already knowing what I'm talking about when I say this. And you've probably been here for health. Anyone listening to this? A lot of times it happens in relationships and career and self-worth stuff too. And this is the experience of some days you're like, yeah, it's totally possible for me. Like, I can heal. I found this new thing. I'm following the thing. That person seems great, or that information seems great, or this supplement is going great, whatever it is. We get jazzed, and it feels easy to think positively about where we're headed, and it feels stable in that, right? It's like one clear, yeah, I can do it. And then there's the couple days later, a couple weeks later, a couple months later, depending on kind of what schedule you're on with the topic that is coming to mind. Then you get the despair, right? The, oh no, this isn't working. Nothing ever works for me. This is never going to happen for me. What is in common with both of these states? This is a brain based thing that humans do. And that is because with the unknown in life, it doesn't matter where it's a dark trail you're following, or a mental thought, or like the future, what you're going to do, transitions, that kind of stuff. The unknown to a system, the central nervous system, whose goal is to keep you safe and alive. As you can imagine, the unknown is a mismatch to that goal. Because if you don't know what's coming, the brain cannot necessarily assign a value to the threat level or good outcome level, right? It doesn't know what to prepare for because it can't make the prediction because it doesn't know what's going to come up. So, the central nervous system, because its goal is to keep you safe and alive, that will that is why we all get looped into what we get looped in about the unknown. You may be, you know, earlier or later in the journey on working with this, but it's virtually universal. I've never talked to someone who's like, yeah, I totally love everything being up in the air, right? And even when we reframe it into the positive, right, we can begin to change our beliefs about what things mean. We can calm down our body. We can support ourselves through the transitions, and we get better at all of that. But the machine, the supercomputer, is the central nervous system, has that as its base. And that is why it is so tempting to go down one of these two roads, and why we will yo yo between the two. When we feel good, we want to definitively say it's going to go great and it's going to work out. And when we feel bad, we want to definitively say it's not going to work. Why does that feel easier? It feels easier because at least then we have an answer, and then we feel like we can do something about, either resolving it or processing it, right? So it does not feel good to say, I will never heal. But when you've been sick a while, you have some comfort in the fact that you know what to expect. You know what tomorrow is going to be like. You're probably going to feel like you felt the last 2 days, and the day before that, and the year before that, and the decade before that. That's how I felt with pain for a really long time, chronic pain for a long time. So even if it's not the outcome that we want, we can feel the safety and the comfort level of having the predictability, because then we can be like, well, I'm disappointed, but then we can, we either kind of shrink down and go into the, oh, well, just kind of do what I've been doing, and I'm going to give up on that. But at least you kind of have, what that plan would look like, right? Like, you may not like it, but you can predict that kind of thing. Or you go the other way where you're like, none of this works. I'm going to reject a bunch of stuff. So then at least you have the predictability of being like, I know what I've been doing. Now I'm going to go reject it and think about how much it sucks and how it's not working and how it won't work. Either way, now the brain knows, okay, here's the goal, we're bashing this, or we're melting down. And that is not taking into account all of what goes into our emotional bodies, energetic bodies, emotional bodies, right? This is just the actual physiology of the brain. Of course, it interfaces with all of those, but what I'm talking about is the built in goal of the system, right? And that's really what it comes down to, because this stuff is all modifiable. All four bodies interplay with each other, and all four bodies we can work on this kind of stuff. But it's it's part of the setting. It's like whatever your ability to get a sunburn is, that is, you could modify that in different things, but your skin is probably set roughly where it is going to be. It's not a problem, right? If you're light skin, you stay in the shade, get sunscreen, all that. And so with the brain, when it has the protective measure for you, we can begin to modify and work with this. But most of us are not going to reset our brain so that it's not focused on keeping us safe and figuring out what's coming and how to predict the threat, right? Like, that's not the goal. We want our brain to be on top of that. And when we acknowledge it and say, hey, that's what it's going to do, but I have all these other ways of working with it and supporting myself in this experience, then we stop fighting ourselves and we can move forward. All right, so out of the two options of going flip-flopping between the two extremes, one of the most powerful things we can do, and the third option that's available to us, is to name what is happening and then ask how we can support ourselves through it. So you say, I'm dealing with the unknown. That's what it is. I can see my brain wanting to land on something, good or bad, definitively. And then we can say, hey, some days I may even feel really good. I want to go into the good. Some days might feel bad, and I may need to sit with that. But long story short is that I'm going to remind myself in these moments of, this is what my brain is doing. Thank you for protecting me. While I feel the discomfort of the unknown, rather than hanging my hat on one of these extremes, so it's like the extreme du jour, what I can do is say, I feel uncomfortable and my brain feels unsettled in this unknown, because I know the truth is that it will remain then unknown whether I jump to extremes or not. What I can ask myself instead is, with this discomfort, how do I support myself? And that becomes a much more empowering question, right? Rather than settling on something that is not going to be true, right? There's 1,000,010 times I said, I'm going to give up on my health journey. I'll just be sick the whole time. That A, didn't happen, and B, deep down, I kind of knew I'd never quit on that because I didn't feel comfortable. I was never going to stop trying to feel good, right? So even when we are in those moments, deep down, you kind of know that that's not going to be true anyways, right? So when we shift our focus from, let me decide how this is going to go, when I know that that's not the case, then in the unknown, and this can be for a job, there's varying degrees of co-creating, right? There's some things that we have more influence over than others, but still this thing applies across the board. So then we can say, as I acknowledge that this is uncomfortable and that this is what's happening, now I say, rather than trying to fix, and pick one ahead of time, I'm going to ask myself what I need. And so sometimes it's like, with the despair of, I'm scared, I don't know what will happen, I wish I had guarantees, this feels really hard. That right there, acknowledging that, crying about that, grieving whatever is happening, that is, the authentic response to what is truly happening to you. So it doesn't have to be good or bad necessarily. You can have the emotions that you are going to have and really acknowledge them. And that's, to me, that's the goal. That's the whole point of doing that. Now you're dealing with what is actually the problem, rather than, picking one or the other and then messing around in something that's not even true. Acknowledging the difficulty in the unknown and what's coming up and processing that, being with that, then that's where you can start to actually make a dent in it, because then the next time it comes around, again, the unknown may not ever be comfortable, and there's going to be varying degrees of that depending on what's happening in life, but we get better at resiliency with it, so our response then can be different, and the level that it rocks our boat is going to be different. And because then you're really acknowledging what's going on, a lot of times this is where, even on the negative days where we would have gone to despair or giving up, we can actually dip instead of dive. We kind of catch ourselves, meet ourselves where we are, show up for ourselves like we're showing up for our best friend or our kid or whoever, that you would like bend over backwards for, make it you. And then because of that, then we feel more supported by ourselves. And that can be external support. Hey, I need a hug. Hey, can we hop on the phone? I want to talk this out. Can I just have a space to listen? I don't need any advice. I just want to feel heard. All that stuff is great, right? And then as you give yourself that, it doesn't have to take you out for the day, the week, the month, the year. I've done it all, so really no judgment from that. It is less comfortable from a brain perspective to sit in the unknown like this and really acknowledge what's happening during that time. But it's actually less painful in the long run than doing the crazy swings up and down. And I don't even think I need to make a case for that. I'm almost certain you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that, right? Flipping from the extremes, the good days, great, but every time you hit the despair again, it honestly undermines the good days because then you're left wondering, like, oh, am I being delusional? Right? And then when you get to the despair days, you're like, see, I shouldn't have been happy about that. I shouldn't have felt excited at that time. And we begin to actually break down our own trust in what's happening. So I hope that in kind of seeing that for what it is, even as you find it uncomfortable to sit in the unknown, that you've shown yourself the other strategy and can say, at least for now, let me experiment with doing it this way. I know what I get from that other way of doing things. I can always go back to doing the yo yo if that works for me, right? Because this is just my opinion. If it works for you, great. And you can tell your brain that, like, you have that strategy. You can always go back to it if that's what you really want to do. Because then, a lot of times the brain will be like, well, cool, I'll have that. That's my backup. I know that pattern. I can always come back to it. I'm not throwing it out. I'm not vilifying it. I'm not making it bad even, right? This is just a new way of doing things. As we do that, you'll begin to demonstrate and give yourself the evidence that you need that you really can show up in this more authentic to you way that brings more of the peace in the journey, no matter what the journey unfolds like. Alrighty, so that's it for today. Come join us for the challenge. I'm sending you lots of love.
Thanks for coming out to hang with us on the podcast. It is our goal to transform the way women are treated in healthcare, and we need your help. We need your help to get the word out. We have a lofty goal of 1 million downloads, and we know that as this podcast grows, we're going to be able to reach more women, get more amazing speakers for you, and bring the most cutting-edge information.
If you found these podclasses helpful, please take a moment to text 5 women you know the link to the series. We appreciate your help so much. Can't wait to see you next time.